Excuse the noise in the background in advance. Them kids, man. I want to talk again about God's will. Talked about this a lot, but I see a lot of people, they kind of limited in, I feel like, how they can move forward, right? Because they feel like God's will is just whatever happens. Like a lot of times, like, well, if it's God's will, I'll partake in ministry. If it's God's will, I'll walk in purpose. If it's God's will, I'll be saved. You know what I mean? God endure to the end to be saved, right? And the perception we have of God's will needs to be correct, or we will be limited because of what we don't understand. That's why I say, with all you're getting, get understanding. 2 says, don't copy the customs and behaviors of this world, right? But let God transform you by changing the way you think. Then you will come to know what his will is, right? Which is good and perfect. So if we don't conform to the world, right? We renounce those things, right? We renounce our former beliefs, our former associations. We follow after God's word. We trust in what his word says, right? And we follow after it. That changes the way we think, right? Because it influences us and allows us to see people, situations, circumstances, in the world the way God sees it. Not all knowing and all powerful, right? But we're made in his image, right? And he gives us measures of these things, right? So we can navigate in life without stumbling and making mistakes through just not understanding the enemy's tactics and strategies to cause us to fall, go into corruption. Highlighted is, then you will learn to know God's will, right? Which is pleasing and perfect. So God's will for you is pleasing to you, is good for you, it's perfect. So not everybody who said to me, Master, Master, will enter the kingdom, right? But those who do the will of my Father, right? That's what Christ said. People look at will as whatever God purposes, but you fulfill, you fulfill your purpose through walking in God's will. God's will is that you be not deceived. God's will is that you prosper. God's will is that you be fulfilled and that your joy may be made complete through operating in what he gave you to operate in, right? Which blesses others, but also fulfills you. His will is that you have peace. His will is that you do everything through faith. You don't do it by your work. You're not overwhelmed. You're not overthinking nothing. You're not led astray and run amok and tossed around by every doctrine, every tactic, everything you don't understand, right? No, God's will is for that. For you to have shalom, right? Which is understanding, which is clarity. That's what that means in the Hebrew, nourishing wisdom. Time of God and let him influence you. He allowed you to understand your will, right? It says then you will know God's will for you, which is good and pleasing and perfect. The more I grew in God, the more I knew that I knew what it was that God had me to do, and it brought me joy. It was pleasing to me. It was good. It was perfect.